Hey there, girlfriend. I'm so thrilled you've come to listen to episode number 6 of my podcast, Women Just Like You, a podcast full of advice for women in the middle of their careers directly from women who are in the middle of theirs. I'm your host, Audrey the Career Woman. We are so lucky to have Deanne Bhamgara with us on the show today. She's got a decade of experience and has specifically spent the last 6 years implementing and managing Salesforce software at tech companies across California. Deanne's work experience spans India and America, marketing and higher education, and software implementation in tech. She's had full-time jobs, contract jobs, and done an apprenticeship program. As you can tell from just those 3 subjects, we've got a lot to get into. On the episode today, we'll chat through the human side of IT, and we get a little into the weeds of what Deanne's world looks like in revenue operations. Revenue operations serves as the connective tissue between the sales teams and the systems teams. It's a common project management role in many companies to make the selling and closing process more efficient for everyone by customizing the software to your organization's needs. All of these systems have to feed into one another and smoothly pass the right information along from one to the next to the next. And during the customization phase, it requires someone to project manage and speak both sales and IT lingo, which is what Deanne does every day. This whole process is called quote to cash, and there's a lot more info out on the web if you want a better understanding of it. But this is a career advice podcast, and that was all the RevOps background we've got time for today. Deanne will talk through what it's like to be a woman in the RevOps space, managing all the different systems and teams related to this world. So let's buckle up and dive into this week's episode. All right, Deanne, thank you so much for joining us today on the podcast. I'm so excited to talk about you, your career, and to give all of the advice to our listeners on what Deanne's life has kind of been like and the tips that they can take from it.
Thank you for having me. I am super excited. I appreciate you for having me on this show.
Yeah, of course. I always start off every episode asking my guests, when you were a kid, what did you want to be when you grew up and why? A throwback to how we started it all.
Yeah. When I was a kid, I wanted to be a pilot. I was certainly fascinated by the idea of flying, the freedom it represented. I loved the idea of exploring the world, experiencing it from above. I think in a combination of excitement, freedom, it kind of drew me to that skill for sure. It's not where I ended up, but here I am.
I always think it's great to dream big when you're a kid. And I think it's just a good perspective too, that like as a pilot or like in planes, you realize like you're a small piece of the world, and like it's a good perspective to have.
For sure.
So I know that you have had a really global life to date. Did that kind of impact you wanting to be a pilot when you were younger? You were born in India, but you spent most of your formative years actually as an expat in Nigeria, and then, have moved to the United States to go to school and then now work. So has that global experience impacted your career of wanting to be a pilot when you were a kid?
Yeah, absolutely. I think you're right. Like I actually enjoyed traveling. I still kind of do. I loved that global perspective that I got from traveling to different places. I believe that one of the best ways to judge a place is by its food at the end of the day. Totally. So, yeah, I think, even my life up to date, I have come to understand that no matter where you're from, everyone faces very different challenges and strives to make the best of that circumstance. I personally feel like I'm very grateful for that opportunity, even when I was young, to have that exposure of moving and living in various cities, even in Nigeria. And that made me believe that the world is full of possibilities. The world is my oyster. It's, yeah, it is. I believe that it's made me a very adaptable and flexible person, even mentally,
Hmm. Yeah, I think getting exposed to culture at a young age and like various cultures at a young age kind of just allow your brain to continuously be a sponge and just, you know, I like the food from this city. I like the architecture in this city. And like, how do you
Yeah,
kind of combine all of that to then, as an adult, say, like, I like this food. I like the architecture of this city. Like, I want to live there, you know? So it just gives you that, as you said, global perspective on like how you can appreciate what different cultures and cities and countries have to kind of like bring you in
yeah.
your own career and life.
Food
Yeah.
and good music, I think it's another way to kind of immerse yourself in culture.
Do you have a favorite food from all of your travels?
I love Thai food. I think it's comfort food.
I love a good pad thai. I love a good green curry. Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah. Thai
spicy.
food is great. All right. So I would love to kind of turn into your career now and just in your own words, tell us about your career to date.
Yeah, I started my career in the marketing realm in an education technology industry where we sold customer relationship management tool to institutions. I managed their B2B, which is business to business marketing initiatives, and handle budgets to orchestrate 50 plus trade shows and events. I collaborated with our digital and social media team. I then worked into design school itself after
Okay.
working in a education technology industry. Over there in the school, I was sort of responsible for marketing as well as admissions. Throughout these marketing endeavors, I definitely deeply involved myself in various tools, whether they were CRM, customer relationship management tools, or other marketing automation tools. And from a user perspective, I really found immense satisfaction in understanding how these systems work from a
Hmm.
business side and how we can improve and customize the tools. So that definitely got me into where I am today in revenue operations role, where I kind of have a foot in each side,
Hmm.
a foot in business world as well as a foot in my technology aspect. This is a space where I can leverage my understanding of business strategies as well as delve into customizing these tools.
Hmm. Yeah, and that's actually like how we got to know each other and work together, working on implementing Salesforce and CPQ as a CRM at a software company. And it's like a huge tool. You can do so many things with it.
Yes.
And like it is very customizable. Um, can you tell us a little bit about what you do with this software in your job? You know, there's so many certifications out there that you can be like a certified Salesforce person that does all this stuff. And there's just a lot of people out there that leverage Salesforce and implement Salesforce. Like, what do you do with the
Yeah, for
technology?
sure. So I certainly was lost because even with a certain technology, there's so many aspects to it. So
Hmm.
I went to a lot of events and Salesforce specific or CRM specific to actually understand the various things that the tool could do, the various possibilities out there. Today, I'm like this liaison between business and technology. So, me working with you from a deal desk perspective was to
Hmm.
gather your requirements and find gaps and loopholes and processes that you would want to improve internally on the systems, and then work with our technology team to build that. So, basically, a liaison between business and technology to, know, uh, translate what sales or deal desk speak to Salesforce technical language.
That is so crucial because if I wanted to go talk to someone in like enterprise technology or information technology, like the ETIT world,
Yeah.
I am so certain that I would fumble so many conversations just because I don't know like the lingo or the like systems limitations for what I'm asking. And so I'm so thankful for people like you out there who can speak the lingo to get, you know, a revenue facing person like me the requests that we're trying to make and implement it with the actual tech team that can actually go and do all of the things that need to be done. So thank you for being
Absolutely.
that liaison.
Thank you. It was great working with you.
Yeah, you too. So I want to quickly touch on something that I haven't gotten a chance to ask other folks on my podcast yet, because you have a unique perspective that you've been able to work both in the US and in India. And so I'm curious what the differences were working within the two different countries and like different industries as well, since your first couple of jobs were in like marketing and analytics in higher ed versus technology today.
Yeah, for sure. The first thing that came to the top of my mind was the number of vacation days I get in India. I absolutely got a lot more holidays, a lot more festivities. I thoroughly enjoyed myself. However, when I was kind of fortunate because I worked in a school, so we didn't work on Saturdays, but corporate life, you do work on Saturdays as well. That's one difference.
When
Um,
you say
most,
Saturdays, are you talking about like a 6-day work week? Oh my goodness. So you only have Sunday off.
yes, most
Wow.
businesses.
Wow. That I'm like, I live for my 2-day weekends and like crave a 3-day weekend every now and then, let alone having a 1 day. Oh
Yeah,
man.
most businesses, yeah.
But luckily, you didn't have to work on Saturdays because
I
you
did
worked in
not.
school.
I lucked out.
So you got like a Monday through Friday 9 to 5 type work schedule.
Ish, yes, maybe earlier.
Mhm. Okay.
Because
Yeah.
the university would open, so I'd want to be there before.
What else was kind of different between the two countries? So obviously working on Saturdays is a very normal thing. Luckily you didn't have to do that. But what else were kind of the differences between working in the two different countries?
So, although I can speak in Hindi, it was very different for me to sometimes converse professionally in Hindi, and that took me some time to adapt. So, yes, most people do speak English, but there were some outside stakeholders where I would have to communicate with in a different language,
Mhm.
and professionally speaking a different language that I, even though speak at home, is very
I
different.
have a lot of friends that speak like other languages and they go, you know, they speak like Spanglish at home or like
Yeah,
Hinglish at home. Is that kind of like your experience?
that's correct. Like a little bit broken,
Mhm.
um, pigeon. Oh, yes, absolutely. One more thing that was very different was getting used to the terminology in terms of lakhs and crores in India. So like 100,000 is 1 lakh, and the way we do the
Hmm.
commas is very different. So I had to adapt to that as well. Kind of do math in my head. It's not just conversion.
Yeah. Cool. I understand like the conversion thing because when I lived in England for a little bit, the conversion for like pounds to euros to US dollars was always so tough. And like getting used to the commas versus periods is
Hmm.
different in Europe in some places. And so I can't even imagine looking at a locks, which is even more different than like just a comma versus period. It actually goes in like a different spot in a number.
Yeah,
Kudos to you for being able to do that literally in your head.
I hear you. Even like in America, we use month, day, and year. So when I first came here, it took me a bit to get adjusted to that lingo as well.
Mhm. Yeah. Lingo is so tough to get the hang of, but I feel like once you do get the hang of it, then it makes life a lot easier. You just touched on lingo being something that's helpful to kind of like bridge the gaps between working in different industries or different countries, different cultures and expectations. Eventually, you left India and came to the United States and worked in like IT, revenue operations. How did you bridge the gap between marketing and analytics and then the IT RevOps world. You talked earlier about being a liaison between people like me and the tech teams. How did you yourself bridge the gap between kind of those two worlds?
I am in RevOps space right now, and I find that as such a happy medium because I gather the business language as well as the technical lingo, but that's all comes from where I started. I started
Mhm.
as a end user from a marketing realm, using these tools for whether it was lead management or search engine optimization for marketing teams or building out campaigns for our sales reps and reporting. So that helped me gain that knowledge. And I wanted to put it in the technical space. So I was looking for certifications. I actually didn't pass my first Salesforce admin certification. I was
Oh,
fortunate
wow.
enough to, yeah,
Like so many people don't share their failures, and we see like the
yeah,
LinkedIn with all the certifications and all the things. And like, so thank you so much for sharing that you didn't pass the first time because I'm sure there's a lot of people out there that like have gone through that experience too and like might feel alone. So you just opening up that one little sentence right there probably just made a lot of people feel seen in their experience. So thank you.
yeah. Thank you. I appreciate that. And I feel like more people should talk about it because failures is what you learn from.
Hmm.
And we all do. I was grateful to be surrounded with a community who was JDS, where I got my certification from. And it was really, heartfelt to learn and work alongside people who are sort of in the same boat as you. I think
Hmm.
we are, as job seekers, we go out there and look for people who already have a job and who might refer you. But that passion and compassion that a person who's also in the same boat as you and learning the technology is very different because we learned from each other. I am still in touch with everyone who I met at a boot camp. Um,
Hmm.
and, you know, I shared my failure of failing my Salesforce admin that I did the first time. I was only able to pass it because of this group that I was with.
That's so great. Honestly, having community around you to build you up in those situations is so great. And I'm glad that like you had that experience at that boot camp. What was the driver for you to pursue a boot camp to like get this certification?
I definitely wanted to get in the technology space, especially because
Mhm.
I had moved to the West Coast in San Francisco. I think the Silicon Valley vibes definitely got to me. And part of me was like, if I want to learn and be in the techie space, this is where I have to learn, and this is the space to be in.
Mhm.
So that atmosphere, made me go out there to go to various conferences related to technology. And then I saw JVS, who was giving out a certification. It was a 3-month program and a fellowship opportunity. So I took it and grabbed that opportunity to
Yeah.
learn about Salesforce as a tool. Also gathered some business system analyst skill set from that program.
It obviously sounds like enrolling in that boot camp really helped kind of make that transition into the RevOps space. For our listeners, like you decided to get an MBA right out of undergrad and get that global experience through your MBA program. And then,
Hmm.
several years later went through that boot camp for Salesforce. If you were looking for advice at those two junctions in life, like whether or not you were going to pursue additional qualifications or not, what advice would you want to hear for the listeners that may be in the same situation right now of like trying to decide, do I go get additional qualifications? Do I stick with what I'm doing?
I would say 100%, like take a leap of faith and go for it if that is something you really want to do. Any group activity or classes, there are a lot of free classes out that you can take. Free learning with our advancements in technology, group activities, meetups, Eventbrite, where you can go and connect with people. But in general, I would say my master's program, I certainly built a lot of soft skills because we did a lot of group activities and my team members would constantly change. We would have projects where we would face challenges on how to launch a product or how to market this, come up with a business proposal. That was part of our master's program. And we had to figure out how to divide and conquer and be more efficient, find out who was good at what. Um, so I suddenly learned from people with different backgrounds. Some people had a lot more experience and they came from different industries. So I really enjoyed my master's program that way. I also remember negotiating with our professors to update our project deadlines. And I think they absolutely appreciated it because in the real world, that's what happens.
Oh, yeah.
There's a project deadline and you have to negotiate it. Like, nope, we're not launching CPQ today, Audrey.
I'd be like, Deanne, please, can we push this out? Like, I don't think it's ready. I don't think the field is ready. And
Exactly. So yeah, I learned that skill set during my master's program where I had to negotiate deadlines um, of projects coming up. So that was my
yeah.
master's. Now, in
hmm
terms of certification, I think it's a very skilled niche skill set. So if you want to build that for your career, and it could be anything, right? Like baking or coding and a particular type of JavaScript or
hmm
product design, very niche. I certainly think it's a great way to show your technical skill sets because you get a certification. Some of these
hmm
certifications are shorter duration than a master's program. I also want you to consider thinking about what is your return on investment because some of these programs are quite expensive. Um, so I would definitely consider that.
hmm All really good points for sure. The investment, both the investment of like your time, but then also your money. You
Hmm.
mentioned like the boot camp you did was a 3 months, like a little intensive, get in, get out, get that
Hmm.
certification.
Hmm.
So there's obviously lots of options out there for people. I know there's free online courses if you want to do stuff on your own time. But then I think your experience, Deanne, with the community that was going through the certification with you sounds like it really helped bolster your decision to go and get that certification, which I'm sure was helpful and like you felt empowered to like keep on keeping on, especially when you failed the sort of the certification the first time and having that community around to just support you and pull you up and reminding you that you are capable.
Thank you, Audrey. That you nailed it. That's exactly.
So folks listening, if you are thinking about it, go do it, right?
Yes, absolutely. You're thinking about it means there's an itch. You need to go do it.
Yeah. So, speaking of going and doing something, you've had a really cool career because you've had jobs in a couple of different like job structures. Like you've had full-time jobs, you've had apprenticeships that you participated in, you've had contract work. One, what are kind of the differences between those different job structures? And then two, what should women think about when they're evaluating whether to take a contract job or do an apprenticeship or just go for a full-time role? Like kind of what are the differences between them and what should people think about when they're
Mhm.
considering them?
So there was a point in time in my career where I actually I chose to move from a full-time position to a contractor. There are
hmm
definitely pros and cons there, right? As a contractor, I kind of made myself available and I felt like I was not juggling too many things. I could balance my work as well as, my passion. I took up art classes. I was super
Oh, cool.
excited. I wanted to do things outside of work that confined 9 to 5 or more hours. And as a contractor, I was not just working 40 hours. I wasn't really worried because I felt like it wasn't very demanding for me. And yes, it varies with job and role, but that I prefer that. And I was very grateful to have a partner where I could also, hop on their health benefits. So that's
Mm-hmm.
something to consider. Like as a full-time person, you do get these health benefits and different compensations. But I had a partner and I could just, still be a contractor and be on their health benefits. So I was very grateful for that. Not everyone is, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
As a full-time employee, however, even in my current role, I do feel more accountable in terms of responsibilities and projects.
Okay.
There's a lot more career development opportunities there when learning prospects because I feel more responsible
Mm-hmm.
compared to my contract positions. It felt very in and out. So,
I didn't think about the um like the sense of responsibility that you would feel like being a full-time versus being a
yeah,
contractor. I know that that's why a lot of tech companies give their employees equity, right? Because they're like, we
yeah,
want you to feel like you're invested in this product in this company.
yeah,
And obviously contractors are you're there to do a job for a certain amount of time, and it does come with some flexibility in terms of you are working 9 to 5 and like that's your 40-hour week, and you can take up art classes on the side and not have to
yeah,
worry about like a last minute project interfering with class or anything. Um,
exactly.
but it does come with like the sense of responsibility too, and kind of that ownership and drive behind wanting to show up every day.
Absolutely. And beyond that, I also think it gives you an opportunity to network, whether it's at work or outside work, like my art classes. I definitely wanted to build that community.
It sounds like community is pretty important to you. Yeah.
Yes. So every year I do this thing where I kind of give myself a word. And last year's word, I chose community. So,
Oh,
so I definitely wanted to cultivate that support system. I wanted to surround myself with a network of, art people or my neighbors, my family, friends.
speaking of community, like that's great that that was your word for 2023. What's your word for 2020?
I'm still working on it.
That's all right.
I,
We're 3 months in. You still got time.
yes, I think this year I am leaning towards health as my
Hmm.
word. Mental health, physical health, whether it's making the time for myself to go to my annual checkups or whatever it is,
Yep.
trying to eat healthy and going to the gym and not worrying too much about work when I don't need to.
Health is so important. It is definitely a good word to have for 2024. I like that. So, community was last year. Health sounds like health is going to be the word for this year. So I'm really intrigued to like connect with you like January 1st and be like, so how did the health thing, how did the health focus go this year?
Yeah.
I actually want to touch on the community piece a little bit more. So from my point of view, my experience working with people who work in systems and like IT is that it looks like it's pretty male dominated. Um, can you tell us about your experience being a woman within the RevOps world, like what that's kind of been like, and if you've been able to build community with your coworkers and peers?
Audrey, historically, especially in the techie space, that might have been true, but 2 out of my 3 bosses have been women.
Heck
My
yes.
coworkers a woman. Yes. So I've definitely had a lot of feminine energy out there. I love that. So we can definitely beat out the masculinity if we want to.
Great. Women can
Yes.
do anything, and they can like get the guys out of the IT world if they want to
Yes.
too.
Yes. I've been reporting to some women directors, in this field. A lot of my coworkers are women. So yeah, we're on the same playing field now.
Oh, that's so great. I also love that you've had 2/3 of your bosses have been women. Like, that
Yeah.
is so great. Girl power. Let's do it.
Yeah, and I also believe like women actually excel in these areas because there's communication, collaboration, there's a lot of relationship building, even just internally. And that is a
Hmm.
very critical skill set to have in a revenue operation.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that's probably what we were kind of talking about earlier of like you being a liaison between like me and like
Yeah.
the revenue side of the world and then like the systems people being able to communicate and almost like translate what I'm
Hmm.
asking. And it's like, oh, Audrey like wants to be able to approve this in a different way. And like what
Yeah.
that actually means is
Yes.
like these technical terms on the back end need to be switched or something.
Yeah. Like Audrey wants to do this in one click, not five, you guys.
Like, let's make her life easier, please.
Yes, it's end of quarter now. We gotta, make it easier next time.
Mhm. Yes. Yeah. And never implement a new systems change like 2 weeks out from end of quarter. That just makes everyone's life really hard. So
Yes,
anyone
I
in
hear you.
systems out there, like remember the first month of a quarter is a great time to roll something out.
And
Yep,
I'm
go ahead.
glad you brought that up because part of my role is also enablement. So
Mhm.
after a technology is launched, to enable users to use it, because what's the point of building if it's not reciprocated? And
Mhm.
enablement is a very big piece. So that communication skill set of working alongside even a difficult partner, of understanding how and definitely listening to what their problems are because they're genuine issues that they're facing. So
Yeah.
another skill set women are very good at.
Mhm. Yeah, we're good problem solvers. We're good active listeners. We
Yes,
want to make people's lives better.
absolutely.
Yeah. So it sounds like RevOps has been a really like welcoming field for you. Like your experience has been pretty positive. What tips do you have for women who are potentially looking to pursue a similar career or are listening to this episode and realizing like, hey, like I'm really good at kind of translating technical stuff into like layman's terms. Like maybe this is something I should consider as a career path. Like what tips do you have for women who may want to do what you do?
Certainly getting my Salesforce certification was hard. Like I said, the first
Yeah.
time I tried to do it myself, I studied myself and I failed. But I kept persevering. I found a social group, support group with JVS and doing their bootcamp classes. And everyone there was really trying to make a career switch of some sort or the other. And it was perfect because we were helping each other out. People of all ages who were in Silicon Valley techie space. So definitely, I would say go find a group that is your community, your tribe. You kind of build your own tribe to get there. I really spent months actually in San Francisco trying to go to different companies who were looking to hire, and it was really hard to make that connection until I talked to people who were in the same boat as me. These people were also job hunting. You
Hmm.
definitely learn from them and build confidence from their stories.
You shared super early on in our conversation that like you're still in touch with a lot of the people that you went through the boot camp with. How are their careers going? Like, have you seen a lot of people do similar career paths to you that like you were able to just get right into RevOps
Mhm.
through like an apprenticeship program and then continue to iterate with like different types of jobs after that? You're all doing this big career pivot, all gone to get this certification to like make the move to something else. What are folks up to?
Great question. We actually diverse into different things. So
Mhm.
some were in the consulting arena, some were project managers in the technical space, some are similar as me in revenue operations, but even revenue operations has different aspects. Like you could be
Mhm.
from top of funnel to, mid funnel with opportunities and deals and order management. You could just be focusing on data and data analytics. Um, and sales ops or field ops type role. Yeah, and I know some who are in the business analyst space as well. Some joined nonprofit organizations.
Oh, wow.
And nonprofit organizations also use similar either Salesforce or other CRM tools. So that certification was definitely translated.
Oh, cool. So it sounds like kind of getting that foundational education was really helpful because then people could kind of pick and choose like where did they want to apply the new skill set that they've gotten and then kind of figure out that space where their previous world can marry with their new certification and like find that perfect fit on the other side.
That's correct.
I'm so glad that like you've had such a positive experience. It sounds like you really recommend people to do a boot camp like this. So we'll put some resources in the show notes if people want to pursue the same boot camp that you've done, since it's obviously been life-changing going from India and working in higher ed, marketing and analytics into now working in tech in the RevOps space and working with other women to just like take over RevOps. Like I'm like so excited to see that and hear that you've had so many female peers and mentors and managers who have kind of helped you like kind of come into your own in the space. So we are getting towards the end of our conversation. And we've talked a lot about like working with like marketing analytics, the differences between working in India versus the US, how you kind of used this boot camp to get into the RevOps space. I know you just made a switch to a new job a couple of months ago. Like, how is that going? How do you think that job you're in today is going to impact what your career is going to look like in the next 5 to 10 years?
Yes, as a sales systems manager today, I am working on other tools as well as Salesforce. So I'm super excited to learn something new because I've never used this tool before, and our sales team definitely admires it. So I am
Mm-hmm.
excited to learn more about the forecasting tool we're using. It's called Clary.
Yep.
I definitely want to continue to kind of have that one foot in the technology space as well as one foot in the business space and aspire to be in that direction. In my leisure time, however, I really definitely want to immerse myself into sketching and painting. I really enjoy doing that. This year has definitely been tough with starting a new job as well as taking pen and ink classes. So after work, I would come back and do classes, work on final projects and assignments. I also like the idea of having a dual income because of
Mm-hmm.
the artsy space. And I think regardless of, you know, whether one pursues it as a financial practice, I think everyone should practice any form of art, like yourself here, on a
Mm-hmm.
podcast show. I think that brings out creativity in a person. And it doesn't even have to do about money or fame, it's just, I feel like it makes your soul grow. You find out what's
Oh,
inside you when you do things like this. It could be, I love the podcast idea, Audrey. I'm super excited for you.
thank you. Yeah, I definitely, to your point, not necessarily about dual income, but about finding like a creative outlet. Like, I definitely got sucked into the whole come home, sit on the couch, watch TV. And when I was done watching TV, sit on the couch or go climb into bed and look on my phone, and I was like, well, how can of course, I'm like staring at a computer now recording a podcast, but like, how can I like just explore something else and like do something that is like interesting to me and to your point, a little bit creative. I mean, it's that whole point of like they've stopped talking about STEM and started talking about STEAM, like introducing art into the STEM world, right? Because it's so important,
Yes.
especially with like design. And I think design's like the big one is like if you're going to do all of these cool like physics projects and like engineering stuff and like build all these things, like you do have to have a little bit of the creative side to make sure you're balancing out all of the like heavy technical stuff, and implement like the A in for arts within steam.
100%.
I love what you said about like making your soul grow. That just like made my heart sing when you said that. So that's just such a
Yeah.
great little nugget that I hope people take away from this.
Yeah.
All right. So you're in the middle of your career. I'm in the middle of mine. What advice would you give to women who are in the middle of their careers right now?
Well, this is something even I am learning, which is advocating for yourself. You know, it's you really have to know how to take charge of advocating for yourself in a workspace. Clearly, being able to articulate your accomplishments, your career aspirations, any sort of stakeholder. And don't be afraid to ask. Ask for a promotion, ask for vacation days, ask for a raise, ask for opportunities and different projects that you're interested in. And it's just remember that's okay to receive a no initially. Just ask again. You know? Just persistence.
Yeah, persistence. Don't take no for an answer. Just keep asking because eventually someone's going to say yes to something, and then you're better off than where you were.
Yeah, and it's okay if they say no today. They might say yes, in a couple months.
Yeah, great. I love that. Love advocating for yourself. That's a really big piece of advice that I think it might come with just like getting older, and like getting into this middle of your career and understanding that like you're the only person that's going to put yourself first. So making sure that you're advocating for yourself, I think comes with time and experience. And if we can help some folks who are a little bit earlier in their careers start advocating for themselves sooner, like all women are going to be better off if you start asking for things earlier in your life.
Yes. Oh, I truly believe that.
Yeah, I can tell. Yeah, you got so fired up when you were like, advocate for yourself. If it's a no today, like it'll be a yes in a couple months. Like you got so fired up when you were saying that. I love it.
Yes.
All right.
Part of my role is also like that. Like even not just career, even your relationship, right? Like imagine if you ask a friend out, like, oh, let's go have an ice cream, and they might say no today, but ask them in 2 weekends. They'll probably be like, okay, fine, I'll go with you, have an ice cream.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. Like kind of bringing that into both professional and personal life, because that's like with me and my podcast. I was so scared to ask people to be on it. And it's like almost every single person that I have asked has said yes, which I'm just like so thrilled about. Like I have this really amazing network of women who are like kicking butt in the middle of their careers. And they're like, yeah, sure. Like I'll be on a podcast. I'll share my story. So thank you for saying yes to me for my podcast.
Absolutely. You are killing it.
I'm like blushing. This is supposed to be an episode about you. You keep turning it back on me. All right,
it's
cool.
a conversation, right?
Yeah. Yeah. All right. So to stop me blushing, let's wrap up our conversation. And let's end by having you say an inspirational quote or a favorite saying that we can leave our listeners with to kind of close out our chat today.
Every day is a personal practice for self-development. You teach yourself every day for that person that you want to be. So for me, it was like, I do not want to be that person who would come back home and sit on the couch and watch TV. I want to do other things. I want to go to the gym. I want to go for a walk. I want to sketch. I want to talk to a friend. So that was important to me, to do other things outside of my workspace. So whatever it is, whatever works for you, do that thing every day to teach yourself who you want to be.
And it's good because sometimes you teach yourself what you don't want to be, right? Like I didn't want to sit on the couch. You didn't want to sit on the couch. And so we taught ourselves by doing that for however long we did it, that we didn't actually want to do that anymore. And it kind of ties back into the, like, you want to be 1% better every day, right? And like it builds on itself. And like if you're every day you're teaching yourself to be a little bit better, you're saying, oh, I didn't like how I handled this situation yesterday, but then you find yourself in that situation again, you remember that and you build on it. Like that's just so great. That's about continuously like developing yourself as a person. And it's a really great perspective to have that, you know, every day is a chance to improve.
Yes, and I think you're learning every day, right? Like there's growth, there's education every day.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Every day is a school day.
There's homework.
Yep. All right. Well, Deanne, thank you so much for joining us on the podcast this week. It's been such a good conversation. Learned a lot about like how you can fail and like be okay with failing, how you can try something new, how you can build community and use that community to build yourself up. So I really appreciate you sharing your experience and your career with our guests. And I think there's just some good nuggets in here people are going to take away from our conversation today. So thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me, Audrey.
Wow, what a woman. If you are just as inspired as me, share this conversation with the fabulous gal pals in your life, because there's so many more women out there who could benefit from Deanne's perspective about being a woman translating business talk into systems talk, where a woman just like you may hear her story and think, if she can do that in RevOps, so can I. In the show notes, you can find links to the resources we talked about in the interview, ways to connect with both me, Audrey the Career Woman, and our guest Deanne, and a link to sign up for exclusive insights into the making of each episode and monthly career development recommendations. If you have enjoyed the podcast so far, I'd love it if you shared it with your network. Follow me on Instagram at Audrey the Career Woman and tag me in your social posts. Please give the podcast 5 stars and like, subscribe, rate, and follow so you don't miss a future episode, and so that other women just like you can benefit from the show. See you next Wednesday for another episode of the podcast, where we'll hear about a woman trying to break into the data science world. And with that, thanks so much for tuning in this week to my conversation with Deanne on Women Just Like You. See you on air soon, gals. Bye.